Welcome to our cooking show. Today we're going to make some delicious brownies. Now let's go get those ingredients. Welcome back. That was a quick trip to the store. Before we get into our ingredients, let's talk to an expert.
And now, let's meet the brownie software. 1.25 cups of natural cocoa powder, a cup of brown sugar, a cup of sugar, a scant ½ cup of all-purpose flour, ½ teaspoon of kosher salt, 8 ounces of melted butter, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and 4 large chicken eggs. Step 1, beat the... Yeah. Now, as soon as the dry ingredients are integrated into the eggs, you can add the wet works, the vanilla and the butter. But go slow on the butter. This is just like making a salad dressing. We may already have an emulsion in there, but if you dump all the fat in at once, it's just going to pool up on top of the other ingredients. Nice and slow. You also don't want to beat this too long because you don't want to get too much air in the batter, or you'll just turn this into a cake instead of a brownie. And you never want to do this at a high speed for the very same reason. Now, straight into the oven. And set your timer for 45 minutes. Right down in the middle. That's what I want to see, just a little bit of crumb on there. Now when it comes to cutting, knives tend to crush and crack brownies, so I go with my pizza cutter. Yeah, it might be named after pizza, but what a multitasker it is. Now, up onto a rack to finish cooling. That way we won't get any condensation to build up. Now, if I only had a nice glass...
Welcome back. Now that was a good video. All right, so the ingredients are going to be your standard brownie mix, eggs, some water, and then the change we talked about before, is going to be applesauce. So when selecting your equipment, make sure that you get the correct size you want. 8x8 is kind of taller, and 9x13 is going to be a lot thinner. So make sure you pick the one you want and adjust your cooking times accordingly. All right, so now we're going to talk about our equipment. We have our mixing bowl for the ingredients, the spoon to mix it with, and then our glass that we're going to use to bake in the oven. Because it's going to take time, let's go preheat that oven. Now we're going to set the temp so we can make sure it preheats in time. You're going to set it to 325. Now let's get cooking. But first, let's wash our hands. So now to grease the pan, make sure you don't do too much, just enough to coat the bottom. And now we're going to set this aside for a second, and we're going to go ahead and do our ingredients. First, we're going to do all the wet ingredients first. Pour the water, get our eggs, and then the applesauce. I know it's strange, everyone's used to using oil, but applesauce is going to make it nice. Now for our dry ingredients. And when you're doing the dry ingredients, make sure, careful not to plop it in, and you're kind of stirring at the same time as you put them in. And then get the last bits in. There we go. Hold it on the counter, no big deal. You'll be perfectly fine, it'll be all right. Just go ahead and stir until completion. This looks pretty good. Now you want to lift your bowl, scraping the sides. Get all the sides in here. All nice and good in there. One thing we didn't talk about earlier is you need a spatula sometimes. Scrape this out. Now give it a few taps on the counter to get the air bubbles out. That should be good. Now, let's get it in the oven. Now don't forget to set your timer. Let's go ahead and set it. I set it for 42 minutes. I assured the timer. Let's check and see if it's done. Now use a toothpick. Comes out clean. It's done. Now when you check, I forgot to mention this before, if it's wet at all, make sure you leave it in for another minute or two and then check it again. Now I know you're eager, but you need to let it cool. Let it cool for about 30 minutes, upwards to 2 hours. Alright, now it should be cool enough. Let's carve into it. Make sure you have a good knife. You don't want to use a dull knife because it'll drag. And make sure you go in even amounts. So we're going to do 9 squares. So we're going to cut here first. Grab the pan so it doesn't move. Now you just want to put your spatula in there. Try not to dig too hard. Kind of dig around the edges to get them all loose. Dig around, dig around. You want to make sure you have a good small spatula. You can use a thick spatula if you want. They're kind of harder to get around the corners. As you can see, this little itty bitty one, we can kind of get underneath really well. Okay, now let's take one out and start to set it in here. Now that you've seen it, you try it. So good. Next time, tune in for more recipes.